The Spanish-American War, a pivotal event in history, not only marked the end of the Spanish Empire, but also catalyzed the rise of the United States as a global power. This war, a conflict that spanned just over 7 months in the year 1898, was a turning point in the geopolitical landscape. The United States, driven by a desire for Cuban freedom and economic interests, found itself drawn into this conflict, with broad public support back home. The principles of manifest destiny, the belief that the expansion of the U.S. throughout the American continents was both justified and inevitable, and expansionism, the policy of territorial or economic expansion, served as the philosophical bedrock for U.S. involvement. These ideals stirred the nation, propelling it into a war that would stretch far beyond its borders. This war set the stage for a treaty that would reshape the world map and redefine international relations. In the aftermath of the war, the path to peace was treacherous and fraught with complexities. As the dust settled after the Spanish-American War, the journey towards a peaceful resolution was far from straightforward. President McKinley found himself in a delicate position. His instructions to his emissaries were clear. The United States was driven by humanitarian motives and sought a just and fair settlement. The emphasis was on the need to end the oppression of the Cuban people and to ensure their freedom. But the president was also acutely aware of the economic interests at stake. The negotiations were not just about ending a war, they were about shaping the future. A future where Spain would have to relinquish its sovereignty over territories in the Western Hemisphere, including Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. This was a bitter pill for Spain to swallow, marking the end of a centuries-old empire. Simultaneously, the United States was stepping into uncharted waters. By taking on these territories, the country acknowledged new duties and responsibilities. It was a bold step driven by principles of manifest destiny and expansionism. The United States was not just expanding its territory, but also its influence in the world. Yet beyond the political and territorial considerations, there was another dimension to these negotiations. The United States was also eyeing commercial opportunities in the region. The Philippines in particular held the promise of a vibrant market and a strategic location in the Pacific. The road to the Treaty of Paris was not easy. It was a journey filled with diplomatic maneuvering, intense negotiations, and high stakes. But through it all, the end goal remained clear: to bring about a just and peaceful resolution to a war that had shaken two nations to their core. With the stage set, the world watched as the United States and Spain put pen to paper to formalize the end of an era. On December 10, 1898, a historic treaty was signed: the Treaty of Paris. This treaty marked a significant turning point in the annals of global history. It was a defining moment, not just for the United States and Spain, but for several territories that found themselves at the crux of this geopolitical shift. Unraveling the threads of the treaty, we find Spain relinquishing sovereignty over several territories. These included Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. These territories, each with their distinct cultures and histories, were now under a new reign, that of the United States. For Spain, this was the end of an era. The once mighty Spanish Empire was reduced to a shadow of its former glory, signaling the end of Spanish colonial rule in these territories. And what of the United States? Well, it was a time of expansion and manifest destiny. The United States was a nation on the rise, and the acquisition of these territories was seen as an opportunity for growth. However, this growth was not without its cost. In compensation for the territories, the United States paid Spain $20 million. Now, $20 million might not seem like a lot in today's terms, but back then it was a significant amount. This exchange of money symbolized the shift of power from Spain to the United States, a shift that would have far-reaching consequences. But the Treaty of Paris was more than just an exchange of territories and money. It was a reflection of the changing world order. It embodied the spirit of the time, a time of exploration, expansion, and sometimes exploitation. It was a testament to the power of negotiation and diplomacy, and how these tools can shape the course of history. So, as we look back on the Treaty of Paris, we see it not just as a document signed more than a century ago, but as a key that unlocked a new era. An era characterized by the rise of the United States as a global power and the decline of the Spanish Empire. This treaty was not just an end to war, but a beginning of new geopolitical realities. The Treaty of Paris, while ending one chapter in history, opened another, filled with new challenges and opportunities. The Treaty of Paris was more than just the conclusion of the Spanish-American War. It was the dawn of a new era for the United States, an era filled with new responsibilities, ambitions, and global influence. On April 11, 1899, the treaty officially came into effect, marking the end of Spanish sovereignty over territories like Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines, and the beginning of American involvement in these regions. The implications of this treaty were far-reaching. One of the immediate effects was its impact on the 1900 U.S. presidential election. The treaty had strong public support, largely driven by the American desire for Cuban freedom and the potential economic opportunities it offered. President McKinley, who had backed the treaty, used it as a significant campaign issue. His support of the treaty and its principles of humanitarian intervention and just settlement resonated with the American people, leading him to secure a second term in office. But the Treaty of Paris was more than just a political tool. It was a catalyst for the United States' expansionism and the pursuit of commercial opportunities in the region. With the Spanish Empire no longer in the picture, the U.S. was free to explore the economic potential of these territories. This pursuit was not without its challenges, but it paved the way for the U.S. to establish itself as a major player in the global economy. The treaty also signified a shift in America's foreign policy. The U.S. recognized the necessity of Spain abandoning the Western Hemisphere, but it also acknowledged its own new duties and responsibilities in the Philippines. It was a step away from isolationism and a step towards a more active role in global affairs. The Treaty of Paris was more than just a peace agreement. It was a defining moment that shaped the 20th century and beyond.